Hey everyone, Daniel and Chris here with the Superhero Show, and this week we're going to talk about something based on an interview you did with a forthcoming Marvel villain.
Superhero reboot. So I spoke to Ed Screen, the star of Transporter Refueled, which I quite liked, although I seem to be in a minority on that front. But Ed's also in Deadpool coming up. He plays Ajax, kind of a semi-villain in that movie. And we got chatting about the fact that he's a really big superhero fan, and I asked him what his favourite character was. And it was Spawn, of all characters. No one's ever said that when you ask what your favourite superhero character is, that we've asked. And so, yeah, he spoke for a little bit about his love for the character, so let's play that clip.
Now, obviously, you've got a superhero movie on the horizon, and I know you're a big superhero fan growing up, so who was your favourite superhero as a kid?
Spawn.
Spawn?
Yeah, Spawn was Al Simmons.
That.
Yeah, he is, I loved him. I've still got all of my old Spawns, and I used to go to the conventions and buy Spawn. I remember I bought Spawn 1 and was so overexcited about that, and you know, the Violator miniseries and all the Overkill stuff, and so yeah, definitely Spawn. I mean, the Age of Apocalypse in the X-Men was also a really important time for me. You know, it was my era, you know, so...
They didn't nail that Spawn movie, so would you be interested in another Spawn movie, getting involved in that?
I'm a huge fan of Spawn, and you know, I take every script and every offer and possibility as it comes, you know. But you know, it's a wonderful, wonderful character.
So he wasn't going to say that he wanted a reboot or he'd want to be involved in it.
You were being annoyingly cagey, because that's obvious that you want a reboot and you want to be in it.
Yeah, who wouldn't be? So that obviously is going to, neatly segue into, we're going to discuss the kind of comic book characters who have had a shot on the big screen or the small screen, and it maybe didn't work out for a variety of reasons. Yeah. And also, a lot of the ones that we would have talked about on this show a couple of years ago have been rebooted and quite successfully. Daredevil. Elektra's going to get a shot in the next series. We're going to get another Punisher.
Yeah.
So a lot of these are being redone, but we're going to pick some of the characters that haven't been discussed so far.
So shall I kick off with one that hasn't been successfully rebooted?
Sure.
Fantastic Four. Because we've not talked about that enough this summer.
Yeah, let's get this done.
But I think it's an obvious one and a good one, because, man, those guys really need a kick-ass movie. As I've said on the show before, I've watched all 3 versions in the last few months, and it's not fair. It's not right.
Is it doable, do you think?
Totally.
But do you think there's not just a bad smell around that property in the mainstream where...
Because I've seen people write, oh, you can't do it. Yeah, of course you can do it.
No, I agree that fundamentally you could get the right filmmaker, director, writer to do a cool version of that.
I think we need a bit of time though, don't we? We're going to need a bit of space.
Probably another 7 years until the rights run out again.
But I rewatched The Incredibles over the weekend, and it's like, yeah, this is so doable. Like, you know, you did your pitch the other day on the show.
Period movie where it's just a family having dinner. I am available. Got the first
and
thing.
Incredibles just made me feel like this needs to happen and needs to be done right. But no, you're quite right. Like, yeah, it's not going to be.
I think that's the major hurdle now. They've had 2 kind of mediocre adaptations. Just the audience, people who aren't really into like Marvel comics or those characters in general, they just go, "That's not a cool thing, is it?" Fantastic Four, which is a shame. But hopefully someone does come along.
Have you got a better one?
Well, there's been a movie, this Swamp Thing. Wes Craven directed it. I think that was quite a troubled film. I don't think he got the money. Don't think he got the money he wanted to make the film he wanted. But that's a phenomenal character. Some of the great comic book writers have written for that character. Obviously, Alan Moore's Saga of Swamp Thing, but then lots of great writers. And I think that character. You know, we're talking about the other week about supernatural and horror characters taking over superhero movies. I think that's a really interesting character, like to really explore like the neuroscience, which is, you know, Alan Moore did a lot in his run on the comic, to incorporate like modern advancements about perception and psychology and neuroscience into this really weird character who has very unique powers and quite a heartbreaking, tragic character as well.
Yeah.
I think they could do something really kind of distinctive. Again, you find a cool director who wants to tell that kind of interesting story.
Do you think it needs to be horror? Do you think it needs to be an 18 or an R?
I don't think it needs to be a horror. I think some of the imagery can just be quite out there. You know, they're talking about Doctor Strange being really out there and psychedelic and trippy. DC could have that to a degree with Swamp Thing, but use kind of a different like visual register, like all the kind of weird biological stuff they can do, the way that he can transfer his consciousness between different organisms.
Yeah.
That's really far out there stuff. And I think with modern special effects, they could really bring that to life in some interesting ways. And also, I think it gives rise to some really interesting types of plot that you don't get in other types of movies.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
it'll set
really
it
like
apart.
to. Yeah.
I think if it were to be an R, though, and Spawn is one that maybe should be an R, I think a lot's going to depend on Deadpool next year. If Deadpool makes money, we could see some grown-up, scary, unpleasant superhero movies.
And I think Kingsman fortified them a bit, and Kick-Ass, maybe not Kick-Ass 2 so much, but the idea that you can still have, you know, a hard rating, and people will...
Yeah, but Dredd did the reverse. Like, Dredd...
Don't mention Dredd, but Dredd's a very good movie still.
Dredd's great, and it messed everything up.
Yeah.
So my other choice is something I've spoken about a lot on here. Flash Gordon.
I love Flash.
One of my favourite movies ever. A proper bona fide comic book movie, like the colours and like Michael Hodges, the director, was really trying to do something there, adapt a comic in a way that some of the, you know, the Marvel movies don't do it in that way. It's ridiculous, but it's been over 30 years. Famously, George Lucas tried to get the rights to Flash Gordon, and when he failed, he wrote Star Wars. And I think with Star Wars coming back, I've spoken about it before on here, I think, you know, sci-fi might be the next cycle, and the fact that Guardians was a success, we're going to get a bunch of Star Wars movies. I think Flash Gordon, the time is right.
Anyone you want to play Flash?
Oh, now you're putting me on the spot. Sam Jones. Let's get Sam
Still.
Jones back. Have I told you my Sam Jones story?
Well, you have to inject him like monkey hormones.
Have I told you my Sam Jones story? I interviewed him over the phone a long time ago when I worked at Hot Dog magazine, and he answered the phone, and I said, "Oh, can I speak to Sam Jones?" He said, "I am Sam Jones. You don't recognise my voice, do you?" And I said, "No, I don't. I thought it was higher." And he said, "Yeah, that's not my voice in Flash Gordon." He said, "I've got a horrible story to tell you." And then he just went off on one, explaining that towards the end of the shoot, his agent, it was his first movie, and his agent advised him to ask for more money because they couldn't finish the film without him. So he did, and Dino De Laurentiis, the producer, just said, "No,
Screw you.
bugger off." And so if you watch the film, there's quite a few scenes where he's got his back to camera because it's a stand-in and it's someone else's voice, and it ruined his career. He got blacklisted and
Oh, stop laughing now.
and you know, he's Mr. B movie, but yeah, really there's lots of weird stories from that set. But yeah, who's Flash Gordon? I don't know.
Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt, Chris
Yeah,
Pine.
everything. One of them.
One of the Chris's. Who's the other Chris?
Chris Evans.
Yeah, one of the Chris's.
Just get a guy, Chris.
Or Chris Tilly. What's your final choice?
Final choice is Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider is pretty...
Why? There's been 2 Ghost Rider movies. Why? What's the problem?
Both pretty rubbish. You know, we know they're going to go in on the supernatural, and this is one of those horror-tinged characters. And I think you ditch Johnny Blaze and you do another Ghost Rider because it's like one of those titles that's inherited. See, I think they could go with like the recent comic book incarnation. This dude he's a Mexican American called Robbie Reyes. Mm-hmm. He drives a car, not a bike. So again, visually dissimilar. You kind of, you know, you're cutting away from the 2 mediocre movies. Also set it in LA. You know, part of America that, you know, so many of the Marvel stuff is set in New York. All the Netflix stuff is in New York. Avengers stuff takes place in New York. I think it'd be cool to do something on the West Coast.
Yeah.
I think Iron Man in the past and Hulk and Ant-Man, they're kind of moving over there. It'd be good to have another hero, an LA-based hero. And I think, you know, there's lots of cool stuff in... I think once Doctor Strange gets going, there's going to be more villains that can be played with in those movies, and I think that's a movie that would benefit from having the Marvel continuity. And also that new character, new setting. Yeah, it's still Ghost Rider, but it feels new.
But I guess you retain Nicolas Cage.
He can do anything because he's an actor. He transforms himself.
How upset would Nicolas Cage be if someone else got to play Ghost Rider? He'd be livid. All his tattoos. He'd have to change the face on his tattoos.
I always, now that I've seen The Death of Superman Lives, I've just got all these images of him dressing up as Superman in a hotel room, and that's the closest he ever got to being Superman.
Crying.
And part of me still thinks maybe he goes to hotel rooms and puts on the costume for Japanese businessmen.
Orders a bottle of whiskey from room service and just weeps
in front of the mirror. Doesn't fit anymore.
phoning up Tim Burton.
Really long hair. He's just going, I wouldn't have had this hair in the movie. I would have got it cut.
Tim, it's Nick. Remember me?
You got the rights yet?
Well, those are our reboot ideas. I don't think I pitched mine very well, but you
can fill in the gaps.
Yeah, and I told a good Sam Jones story, I reckon. So yeah, let us know what yours are though. What is the email address?
superhero@ign.com.
Excellent. So we've got some great emails this week. I'm going to kick off with one from Ryland Smith, who says, just had a comment regarding something Chris said.
You just said?
Apparently I said, I feel like all the superhero movies are one generation. I don't know why I said that. It's a weird thing to say. And Ryland's disagreeing and has actually
rightly so
put forward quite a good theory. It says, I would posit to you that we can now break up superhero movies into 3 distinct eras. 1. Everything pre-2000. This would include Christopher Reeve's 1978 Superman movies all the way up to George Clooney's 1997 Batman and Robin. These films, while some of them quite good and some of them god-awful, never really took themselves very seriously, and neither did film scholars or film goers. To summarise, most still thought of them as basically kids' movies. I think that's fair.
Yeah. Well, a couple of exceptions, I think.
Sure.
But as a general comment, Superman. But
Batman started changing things as well. Phase 2. 2000 to 2008. This includes the first X-Men trilogy, first Spider-Man trilogy, etc. This era showed the emerging trend of superhero movies as big business. The quality of movies, both artistically and as adaptations of the comics, in this era is markedly better, but still not up to what they will be in the next era. ... Era 3, 2008 to now. This era is obvious. Shared universes, movies regularly making billions of dollars, routine Oscar nominations including Heath Ledger's posthumous award. Superhero movies have arrived, and not only are they big business, but are considered important cultural and creative pieces of cinematic art, at least some of them. Which I think that all that's fair, but Ryland has a problem. He says, my one issue with these eras is what to do with 1998's Blade.
Oh, turning point, tipping point.
Maybe placing it in era 1, but saying that it was way ahead of its time.
Yeah, because sometimes you get that. You know, this isn't science, this is the arts. You get generic outliers. That's what it is. It's a precursor.
It's an anomaly.
It's an anomaly, it's fine, but it led the charge. It's an
right
important
email.
Anomaly.
Ow. I've got an email from the same person. God, you wrote a bunch, Ryan, didn't you? I've even left one of his out. Go on, you're...
I'll go on my one.
Why not?
Great name, Keaton from Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm going to go back to Spielberg's comments. I feel some people without a love for comics are kind of burnt out on this wave of movies we've gotten in the last few years. But the superhero movie has been around for a while, with Christopher Reeve's Superman and Michael Keaton's Batman all the way up to now. I think the technology today has now allowed us to make accurate depictions of characters, thus this big boom of movies. So I agree with you guys. Thank you. You don't have to. It's optional. It's not just a fad because it's actually been around for a while and it will continue until the love for these movies has died down. Which
Agreed.
is kind of what we're saying.
Agreed. And if you don't know what we're talking about, watch last week's episodes.
Yeah.
Google superhero show and Spielberg. Another one from Ryan.
It's that little how-to Google.
He's talking about Vincent D'Onofrio in Daredevil. He says, Vincent D'Onofrio's portrayal as Wilson Fisk for me was one of the more memorable performances I've seen in a while. It was captivating yet unnerving. At one point, his portrayal of Fisk was a bit reminiscent of one Hannibal Lecter. There are not enough words in the... Yeah, this gets heavy. There are not enough words in the English dictionary or otherwise to describe how much I despised his character.
Wow.
It's big, Ryan.
This is written by Matt Murdock.
And there were times I just wanted to drop kick this guy. He's heavy. It's tough to drop kick him out in that big.
Daredevil couldn't do it.
I couldn't help but cheer when he finally got his ass handed to him by Daredevil. With that being said, I think D'Onofrio should be nominated for a Best Actor Emmy for his thrilling performance.
Wow.
Agreed,
Powerful
though.
effect.
Actually, I didn't think about that. Totally should. Does Hannibal ever get nominated in the acting?
I don't know if it does. I feel like they should. Some of them. Matt Nicholson should have.
Anyway,
Right.
yeah, let D'Onofrio for an Emmy.
Derek Reese from Torrance in California. I really enjoy the show and have several thoughts and ideas in the past, but I haven't said anything because I typically don't like using the internet to come off as just another whiny fan. We do it every week. But his email is entitled Too Similar. Doctor Strange and Iron Fist both have similar origins. Both characters show the trend of going into the snowy mountains of Tibet and coming back as superheroes. Despite my faith in Marvel, this I see as a potential problem of sorts. It's also quite similar to what happened to Nolan's Batman. And yeah, while they're both visually similar, what if they turn that into a positive and use that to tie them in together in like a shared universe? One on Netflix, one in cinema. I'm sure that they're smart enough to see that it might be.
Well, one's walking out, one's walking in. They just nod at each other.
Yeah, you just like bump into. So, you're right, mate. Beautiful.
I've never read Iron Fist, but he actually recommends some Iron Fist in
he's right. The Matt Fraction recent stuff on Iron Fist, because Iron Fist, like the 70s hero, like there's some good stuff, but it's not. The best stuff is actually more recent stuff. It's more like going back and going, we actually need to consolidate an origin for this character and bring him up to date, because he's quite a character of his time, like Luke Cage.
So I didn't know the Tibet stuff, but I did think that as soon as I read Doctor Strange, it's like, yeah, I've seen this in Batman.
Yeah.
Challenging.
Tibet's awesome.
Final email from me. It's from Hassan, who is founder of the Superhero Art School in Durban, South Africa. So I thought we'd just give this a plug because it sounds pretty amazing. Hassan says, I'm a social and human rights activist, and together with Stand Up Foundation and NPO, I've launched an art school designed to achieve two things: to awaken in children a new skill that helps them express themselves, and to support educators and social workers to identify emotional problems like depression, physical and sexual abuse, and other trauma. We are gaining momentum, and Superhero Art School is being introduced to schools in the Greater Durban CBD, with plans to reach out to other areas soon. So that sounds amazing.
Brilliant stuff.
Hassan also asked if we can sign something back here and send it to him. I appreciate you doing something great, Hassan, but that's our stuff. That's going nowhere.
Gav's BB-8. Just give that away.
Shall we? That really annoyed Gav, wouldn't it?
It's 130 quid. Last email is from Sean from Wisconsin.
Why did you do that?
Don't know why I did that.
Apologies,
That's embarrassing. Sean. Wisconsin. Cut that out. I wanted to throw an idea at you that I haven't really heard floating around. Do you think that with Marvel Studios now helming Spider-Man alongside Sony, that it might be possible for that character to be explored on TV?
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have done this one last.
Yeah, it feels like I undercut that one.
Yeah, and it's just no.
Well, there's an animated movie, I know that's not on TV,
Yeah.
so I think they're open to doing other stuff with the character.
You know what,
it's hard to do on TV though, expensive to do live action Spider-Man.
Do you think?
Unless he's just jumping into frame.
Well, we know we're getting 3 movies as well as the Civil War double bill.
Yeah.
So it ain't going to happen anytime soon. But actually, it would be awesome to see him on the telly.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's doable.
I don't know, like the full-on swinging through the city and
You
stuff. I think you'd have scenes where he just like jumps into frames. Oh, you wouldn't believe it. Just stuff I was doing
When
earlier.
I was a kid, aside from Superman, all we had was those Spider-Man TV movies. Have you ever seen them?
Yeah.
Christ.
Christ. Kids don't know how good they have it, do they, Chris?
So it's a no from me.
And it's a no for me. We'll see you next week.